Okay. Thank you, Beef Squatter. Alright, let me go ahead and actually pause the alerts now. Every month a parade would pass through my town, and we weren't allowed to look at it. I've lived in Arizona for the past 15 years of my life, but had a very different life before that. I used to live in a small town in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't even tell you what side of the country it was on, or if it even was in the United States. It was a small forest town with dense trees in all directions, but where exactly this particular forest is, well, your guess is as good as mine. The only thing I know for certain in the name, see, they typoed it, so then when I say it, it flubs me up. They put, I know for certain in the name of the town, but it's supposed to be, the only thing I know for certain is the name of the town. So that's where it makes me feel like a fool. Thanks, brother. The only thing I know for certain is the name of the town, Point Pine. I lived in Point Pine for the first 10 years of my life, before we moved the summer after my 10th birthday. Once we left, my parents never spoke of it again. In fact, they acted as if it never even existed. And to them, I guess it didn't. I don't really blame them either. I caught on pretty quickly and realized that they were trying their hardest to forget the memory of Point Pine. Whenever kids at school asked me where I was from, I simply told them I was from a small town they'd never heard of. I also learned early on that any questions about Point Pine wouldn't be met with punishments. A few months after we moved to Arizona, my older sister, Felicity, had a school project about family history. She did it on our life in Point Pine and wrote about some of the things she remembered from there. Our mom found her project the day before she turned it in and buried it in the backyard. When Felicity came home that afternoon, my parents took her up to her bedroom, where I heard Felicity crying out every few minutes in what I assumed was pain. I said nothing, and from that moment on, neither one of us mentioned Point Pine again. Except for me, right now. I've decided to tell you all about it. I don't know what's causing me to remember all these things that I'd locked up in the deepest parts of my brain, but maybe it's the fact that my father died about a week ago. Since he died, my mom's just remained silent. Hasn't said a word to anyone. Hasn't even cried. In fact, she ended up sending my father's remains off to God knows where. My money's on Point Pine, although I'd be crazy to ask. I've started recalling random little things about the town that at the time seemed like normal everyday things that we as residents were all used to. Now as I look back, I realize that they're not as normal as I thought back then. One peculiar thing about Point Pine had to do with Point Pine Bakery. Whenever you went in there, the owner, Mr. Terrence, always knew what you were about to order. I remember the kids having some sort of rumor about Mr. Terrence being a magician who could read minds. Also, whenever you paid for your baked goods, you had to tip Mr. Terrence with an old item of clothing he had outgrown of. There was a giant box by the register that everyone tossed old baby clothing and shoes into. That was one of the odd things. Although you'll come to realize that it won't seem that weird in comparison to some of the other things about Point Pine. Every year on your birthday, you had to get blood work done. I don't think anyone really knew what the point of this was, or if they were actually looking for something. We just all knew that our birthdays would start off with a trip to the Point Pine labs. Everyone had to be up at 8:13 a.m. There was a system of speakers placed around the town like an amusement park or something, and at 8:13 a.m., without fail, the wailing alarm would ricochet through the neighborhoods and wake everybody up. This was followed by parents running to wake up their children and get them out of bed as quickly as possible, like the house was on fire or something. Sometimes I expected it to be. All the Point Pine schools were placed in different areas of the town. Point Pine Elementary was towards the east side, Point Pine Middle School was in the west, Point Pine High was in the dead center of the town, and Point Pine University was up on a small hill towards the south. If you haven't noticed by now, every place in town was named Point Pine something. The Point Pine Cafe, the Point Pine Mall, the Point Pine Grocery, etc., etc. Certainly, one of the weirdest things by far that took place in Point Pine was the Point Pine monthly parade. It happened every month, without fail. It was never on the same date, and each month a student from Point Pine High was chosen to be in it. The weird thing about this parade was that we weren't allowed to watch it go by. Not on the streets, not from the windows, not even on the television. That was one of the most enforced rules. You must never, under any circumstance, look at the parade. In fact, for the most part, we weren't even allowed outside when the parade passed through. We always knew when the parade was about to start because it always happened the same way. We'd hear a chorus of voices, like a church choir, singing a melody. It wasn't a familiar one that I knew. I was only familiar with it in the sense that I heard it once a month. It sounded like it could be from a nursery rhyme or something similar. The voices seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It was like they were coming from the sky, the ground, the trees, the buildings. Like everything in Point Pine was singing. Once you heard the first note, you had 5 minutes to get inside a house or a building that had locks in the doors. This might come as a surprise, but in Point Pine, not many buildings contain locks. So, if you happen to be out and about on the street when the singing started, you had about 3 options in place so you can go. One of the schools, the staff break room and Point Pine bar, or the fridge and Point Pine pizza shop. One year in the month of August, my friend Lee and I decided we were gonna break the rules and not go inside when the parade passed. Now that I think about it, I'm surprised that the kids didn't do this more often. Considering that, well, when you tell kids that they must absolutely never do something, they, often do the exact thing. Since we didn't know when the parade was coming, or where it started, or the exact path that it took around town, we decided the smartest thing to do would just be wait in the forest near the Point Pine Library until the parade eventually came down that street. So we basically decided to spend about half of the month of August hanging out near or around the library. Around the 3rd week of the month, we were just sitting on the steps of the library, talking about some random things that aren't important. Then we heard the music start. Lee and I looked at each other, and then took off running into the trees. While everyone else raced to the nearest school, we just went far enough into the forest that someone on the street wouldn't see us. But stayed close enough so that we were still able to see a part of the road. We waited for a while, whispering to each other and then shushing one another as we waited for the infamous parade to pass. This year, my sister's friend Reed was chosen to work in the parade. She was a few years older than my sister, but they were friends because Reed used to live next door to us when we were younger. We were crouching in the bushes and leaves when we heard the chorus of voices getting louder, and therefore, closer. "Dude, I totally see it," Lee hissed. I straightened my back a little bit in my crouched position to try and see what Lee was seeing. I was always a short kid. Even now I'm shorter than most guys my age, or honestly any age. So, Lee always pretty much towered over me. "I can't see anything," I hissed, shifting my position. "Shh, you might hear us," Lee hissed. I stopped moving and instead waited for them to get closer, where they were bound to pass right in front of my line of sight. Oh no! Oh crap! Suddenly, Lee dove to the ground, landing in the fetal position, with his hands cradled in his hand. With his head, fuck. With his head cradled in his hands. What? I asked, looking from him to the street. I saw her! I saw that girl! He exclaimed. Reed? I asked, looking over to try to spot her. Lee grabbed me and slammed me to the ground. Ow! I exclaimed. What was that for? You don't want to look at it, Lee replied. I noticed that for the first time in all the years that I had known him. Lee looked absolutely terrified. I turned my back on the parade and sat down to look at Lee instead. What did you see? I whispered. Those things. They did something to her. They're eating her, Cody. But she doesn't even fucking care. I looked at Lee, who still had his head in his hands. He was crying now. I sat with my back to the parade, no longer wanting to see. I heard the singing getting louder. Cody. I heard the whispers calling. Don't look. Cody. Cody. And the voice that sounded like Reed. Look at us, Cody. I shut my eyes. The voices went on for a few minutes longer, and at one point, Lee started wailing. I kept my eyes shut the entire time. After that, it moved along and continued its way through town. Once we began to hear everyone come out of their hiding places, I stood up and leaned down to help Lee get up. Once he stood up, he kept his head down. What's wrong? I asked. I could hear him sniffling. Lee? He finally responded as he lifted his head. It took my eyes. I will never forget the dark, bleeding holes in Lee's face and the cuts around his skin. I threw up in the forest for a good 3 minutes before I was able to help lead Lee out of the forest. A few adults saw us and got our parents, who came and got us right away. The day after that, my family moved out of Point Pine. I never knew what became of Lee after that day. Minutes after we left, my parents acted like Point Pine never existed. It was never discussed, and I never had the nerve to ask about Lee again. As far as I know, Lee was the only person who ever saw the parade. He was never to see anything else after that. I don't know if Point Pine still exists. I'd like to go check it out again, but even if I knew where it was or how to get there, I don't think I'd ever go back. I have a feeling that I wouldn't exactly get a warm welcome. Although I can't shake the thought that my parents were somehow still connected to the town, even after all those years. And scene. Alright, that was a pretty sweet story. I liked it. Cool. If you guys would like that story yourself, it's over there on the No Sleep subreddit. Can I turn the rain down a bit? Sorry about that. But, yeah, that wasn't bad. Honestly, we read that a lot faster than I thought we would. I thought we weren't going to be able to finish that in time. Shit. Dope. Sick. Yo, we can do another one even, if that's the case. Oh shit, hang on a second, I can check these. I paused the alerts during it because I didn't want to ruin it. So, it's all good now. You got any on Creo? Real throwback hours? Yeah, man. Oh, we can actually change the atmosphere for this one too. For this next one, I haven't found one yet, but we can do fireplace thunderstorm, fitting of the actual environment. That should be good. Alright, that's that comfy shit. We had a raid, by the way, did we? Jabroni Mike did for 193. Thanks, brother, man. Also, Beef Squatter for a year. Mixim Maglia. CC Penguin. Streaming Blue says, hi, Cry. Just wanted to say thank you for everything. I'll be moving to Germany in a week, and I've been stressing to the max. Feels so good to slow down and snuggle down for story time. Hell yeah, dude. And love my skin. Thank you very much as well. I got some poems if you ever want to read them. Oh shit. You know what? Speaking of poems, would you guys like to hear a poem that I wrote about 10 years ago? Literally, the anniversary of it was about 10 years ago, a few days ago. It's on my DeviantArt, but I found it again. Like, I found it literally on the anniversary of its 10-year upload, so it was kind of cool. I even did an update of it. Yeah, the anniversary of its 10-year upload was 4/25. I uploaded it on 2009 of April 25th, and it had some little grammatical issues, so I fixed it up. So this is like the more modern, like, this is like the non-shitty take of it, I guess. Assuming I can get this. Okay. Please forgive me. I wrote this for my my Vietnamese boyfriend at the time wanted help with his homework, so I literally wrote this for his college homework. The friends we had, the memories we shared, the lessons we learned, the people who cared, words gone unsaid, lives drifting apart, my youth now ending, and true life given start. Regret growing inside, of words left unspoken, the lives I wished to touch, my heart torn and broken. Those old friends so far away, distant, grown, mature, my memories beginning to fade, the life of my childhood a blur. A familiar smile comes into view. My eyes begin to open. Thank God, it's you. Wrote that 10 years ago. What a... Well, the original one had some grammatical issues, but I tweaked it. Alright, let me go ahead and find... Oh. That one's too long. It was very emo. Of course it was emo. I was an emo fucking boy back then. I had a Vietnamese boyfriend. Yeah, dude. He catfished me. I thought he was not a boy, but I was like, I don't give a fuck. This could be weird. Alright, chat. This one's called My Wife Thinks She's a Mermaid. That could be something. You want to see why she thinks she's a mermaid? I kind of do. Might be Ariel. Oh shit. Okay. Alrighty. Let's give it a whirl. Hey, Kratos, woke up. It's 12:40, 12:54 in Australia. Yo, dude. Good morning. Welcome to the chill stream where we're gonna read one more story and then we're gonna go sleepy bite. Is that a written story or just one of the real life show docs TLC weird dictions? What? I mean, all the... Oh, I see what you mean. No Sleep is they're fictional stories, but the whole subreddit's, like, theme is to pretend they're real, if that makes sense. So, like, it's all fake, but when you go to the subreddit and in the comment section, they're acting like it's real because it's just fun, you know? Because why not? 1 second. Okay, never mind, we're good, okay. Alrighty. Is it No Sleep where Ben Drown started? I'm not sure. My wife thinks she's a mermaid. Dad, Mom won't get out of the bathtub. My 8-year-old son Lucas informed me with relative calmness as he came downstairs for breakfast. No? I raised an eyebrow in curiosity. An odd statement, I thought, but he didn't seem distressed. It was more like he was making an offhanded comment. Yeah, she's just in there. I think she's asleep again, he explained as he sat down at the table with an exasperated huff. I could tell the poor kid was fed up, and I couldn't blame him. His mother, my heavenly wife, is known to pull stunts like this. She suffers from bipolar disorder, and when she doesn't take her medication, she comes down from a high, and, well, she comes down pretty hard. Takes a bit of a toll on all of us. It gets difficult to explain why Mommy doesn't want to come downstairs or why she's always the one to make an embarrassing scene at school events without upsetting the kids, but, you know, I do the best I can. Now, I do love her endlessly. I also have to admit that it's tiring to deal with, and it's not uncommon for her to pick a part of the house and refuse to move from it for days on end. I wasn't really concerned either. The only unusual thing is that she usually choose the bed or the couch as her spot, you know, somewhere actually comfortable. Though I guess I wouldn't put it past her to decide on the bathtub either. Alright, well, thanks for letting me know, champ. I'll go get her. You just eat your breakfast and keep an eye on Lucy for me, okay? I instructed and gestured to where his little sister sat in her high chair, mashing food around her bowl. Okay, he answered simply. He was pretty used to looking after her when my wife wouldn't, and when I wasn't home. If I'm honest, I always felt a twinge of guilt over it, but there was little I could do. I made my way upstairs to our bathroom, to where I could hear my wife singing. Well, more humming, really, from the bathroom. Wasn't a tune I knew, though it was melodic and had a hauntingly beautiful quality to it. I smiled so softly to myself hearing her. Of course she was singing. Maybe she was having a good day after all. Upon reaching the bathroom, I knocked lightly on the door before opening it. She answered cheerfully. Come in. Hey, Pumpkin. What are you doing? I asked cautiously, unsure that I really wanted to know the answer as I examined the scene before me. There were bottles of various soaps thrown all around, their contents strewn about the walls and ceiling, creating a mosaic splat of goo. The bath mat seemed to be missing from the room entirely. The towel rack hung broken beside the bathtub where it had been smashed the tiles as it fell, which in turn meant that there was tile shards and sprinkles of plaster coating the floor. All this chaos while my life... Fuck. First fuck up the whole time, damn it. All this chaos while my wife sat in the bathtub quite happily. She smiled up at me as she rested against the back of the tub with her torso and head out of the water. She was naturally also completely naked except for a drenched towel that covered her lower half. I'm a mermaid now, she announced proudly and flopped her legs about under the towel as if they were joined. I can see that. I agreed as I caught on that she'd probably placed the towel there to represent her mermaid tail. Do you want to join me? You can be a merman. It'll be so much fun. She tried to coax me. I mean, it does sound good, but don't you want to come down and see Lucas and Lucy? You know, I bet they'd love to see you. I suggested gently, trying to convince her. No, she said firmly, and then continued in a sweet voice. I don't want to. I can see them later. Just come play. The water's really nice. My wife insisted. I gave a small sigh, rubbing my hand over my face. Anja, sweetheart, have you been taking your medicine? I asked as neutrally as I could. With my question, her smile quickly turned to a scowl and she sneered. You don't believe me. You never know how to have any fun anymore. You're so closed off. You're always trying to put me down. Go away. I don't want you in here. Go away! She shouted, thrashing and splashing water at me. She screamed. She was making quite a ruckus. God damn, I was worried the neighbors might hear, so I get it. I backed out of the room, respectfully, just let her pass. I could tell that she was obviously hadn't been taking her medications, and nothing I could say was gonna get through to her while she was in this state. So I made the decision that I would just get Lucas off to school, call my parents to see if they could watch the kids for a couple of days, and I'll just fucking deal with it. Thankfully, my parents were more than happy to look after their grandchildren, and judging by the looks on their faces when they came to pick up Lucas and Lucy, they probably understood that the reason they were needed was related to Anja. With the kids gone, I spent the entire rest of the day trying to convince my wife to come out of the bath. For the most part, she just ignored me. Instead, she just continued singing to herself, even going as far as to get louder when I tried to speak. In a way, her humming was useful, since I could hear frickin' damn it, I fucked up again. In a way, her humming was useful, since I could hear it from anywhere in the house. It meant I could move about fairly freely and still know that she was okay in the tub. When I thought she'd calmed down a bit, I attempted to talk to her again. Anja, made you some food. You want to give it a go? I asked softly as I carefully re-entered the room. She ignored my question and my presence at first, folding her arms and continuing to hum, and so I prompted again. It's your favorite, salmon with garlic and ginger. This at least got a response. She turned to me slightly and then growled. I'm a mermaid. I can't eat fish. Are you crazy? She yelled again, and I realized my mistake. Oh, yeah, right. Yes, right. Sorry. I apologized quickly and then removed the dish from her sight. After that, I resolved to try another tactic. Honey, don't you want to get out a moment so we can change the water? You know, it's probably getting cold by now. I don't care. I like it cold, she answered bluntly, leaving me dumbfounded. I never considered that she'd actually want to stay in cold water. Out of other ideas, I settled on turning up the heating in the room in hopes of keeping her warm, and just left her to splash about and sing to herself. The following day, I came to check on her early. I knew she was still okay because she was still singing. But I wasn't prepared for the odor that would hit me when I came into the room.